Hello, everyone, and on behalf of Bug, I would like to welcome you to today's webcast for SAP HANA Made Simple with Dell EMC, Validated and Converged Systems, presented by Jim Whalen and Chris Ward. Thank you again for being participants in our webcast and for your continued support with the Bug. You can learn more about the Bug by visiting our website, and actually after this webcast is ended, you will be redirected to our website. Please look around to see all the new events we have coming up and just things going on with us at Bug. Before we begin, I do have 3 quick housekeeping items that I wanted to go over. First, today's webcast will be recorded, and it will be available on demand at vceusergroup.com. We will have that up for you tomorrow. Second, we will have a Q&A session to follow today's presentation. All questions will need to be entered into that Q&A widget window, and lines will stay muted throughout the throughout the entire webinar. So please make sure that you enter in all your questions at that area. And third, we will have a short online evaluation that pops up when we exit this webcast, and we would love to get your feedback. So please take that extra minute just to let us know what you thought of today's webinar. So let's get started. I would like to introduce you today to our speakers, Jim Whalen, Senior Marketing Manager with Dell EMC, and Chris Ward, Global Application Specialist, SAP with Dell EMC. So with that, Jim, I would like to hand things over to you.
Thank you very much, and hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on SAP HANA Made Simple with solutions from Dell and EMC. When we look at our agenda today, we're going to focus a lot on SAP HANA. So what we're going to do is, number one, just review a little bit of what's going on from a disruption standpoint in IT as it relates to SAP around HANA. And once we set a little bit of context for that, we'll then delve into our portfolio with a lot of focus on SAP HANA infrastructure, which will also include data availability as well as a short look at big data with SAP. So as we begin this session, when we look at SAP and what's going on with our customers, we see 2 points of focus. Number one is how they optimize the legacy SAP systems, while at the same time learning how do they deploy SAP HANA, SAP's new in-memory database. When we really look at this session today, while we will focus on SAP HANA, we're also going to be doing it in the context of also supporting the traditional SAP landscapes that you've had running on storage-based databases such as Oracle, SQL, etc. Again, picking this up a little bit further, as we look at and discuss with our customers what's going on, we really hear 3 distinct conversations that they're having. Conversation number one is, how do I modernize the existing IT for NetWeaver? That's really about reducing cost via consolidation and automation. The second thing that we hear is, how can I invest in SAP HANA? And when they talk about investing in SAP HANA, they're saying, how do I make it part of my standard data center architecture, leveraging what's already in place? And then they're also looking at the different use cases on which to deploy HANA. And then thirdly, they're looking at cloud options for SAP. Really, it's really the as-a-service models and what they can do in those areas. Today, we're going to focus primarily on HANA, but again, as I stated earlier, you'll see that it also ties to SAP NetWeaver, as the same solutions that we talk about will also support that platform in addition to SAP HANA. So what about our portfolio strategy? If we step back for a moment, we have a strategy in place for building our offerings, our converged platforms, or I should say our platform solutions, as well as our offers themselves, from 4 different perspectives or 5 different perspectives. Number one at the bottom is, what are our infrastructure options? Our infrastructure options for consolidating and automating and cloud-readying SAP. And when we look at our infrastructure options, we're looking at them in the context of NetWeaver, HANA, SAP IQ, which is really part of their big data strategy, and SAP Vora. We also look at our portfolio around IaaS, or Infrastructure as a Service for SAP, and how we can help develop that and bring it to our customers. And as part of that strategy, there's SAP Landscape Management, which is really around how we can integrate with SAP Llama, or Landscape Management Software. Once you have infrastructure in place, we then look at how do we extend our portfolio to include IT as a service for SAP, managed services, whether on-prem or off-prem. And then lastly, our portfolio will cover what we do in terms of helping data analytics, in terms of linking SAP or making SAP HANA part of the big data strategy that you have. So we have Office that we look at from the edge to the core, on top of which we can lay vertical solutions. So again, we just wanted to give you a little bit of perspective on what our portfolio strategy is for SAP and where we look to build solutions. Now, the next part then becomes, how do we enable deployment? So when you look at this building block approach to SAP, we basically have choices which hopefully are fairly simplified to digest, as well as to get your heads around, if you will, in terms of what Dell EMC can help you with for SAP. Number one, when you look at the cloud, we can help with on-premise IaaS with our EMC hybrid cloud solutions for VMware with our services. If you're looking at running in the cloud, or if you're looking for more managed services for SAP, we do that with VirtuStream, obviously our preferred partner for SAP. But we also work with many SAP service providers and systems integrators. At the infrastructure level, you're going to see that we have different offers which we're going to expand on now as we get ready to get into the detail office that we have around SAP HANA and also to support SAP NetWeaver. So let's peel the onion around what's going on at the infrastructure level and how we set it up to work with our customers. So when you look at our portfolio for infrastructure relates to SAP, basically what you're seeing here is a depiction on how you can engage us based on your choices or your preferred method of consuming infrastructure for SAP. And in this case, we're aligning the discussion to SAP HANA. So when you look at it from left to right, we have what we might call SAP appliances that are fully prepackaged, certified offerings for SAP. We also have offerings for SAP tailored data center integration, making HANA part of your shared IT strategy. And they can come in the form of reference architectures that have been very well defined, very well tested as it relates to our office, so that you can deploy them as part of a shared IT model. And then you've also got our blocks, and we've got our racks in our converged infrastructure portfolio. When you're looking to converge infrastructure in a way that we, Dell EMC, will take on ownership for the lifecycle management of your infrastructure environment, where in the first two on the left, those, when you deploy them, typically customers will then own the lifecycle management of the infrastructure from that point. So again, what we're showing here is that we're offering different choices which we'll expand upon now as it relates to HANA. So when you look at SAP HANA in a little bit more detail, SAP has two models in which they allow you to consume infrastructure for HANA. One is the appliance model on the left. Simply stated, that is where you have all your components prepackaged, sized, and shipped out, ready to run SAP around a dedicated use case. A use case maybe being a data mart, running SAP BW, Business Warehouse on HANA, maybe running SAP Suite on HANA. But the key is it's targeted for a specific workload enrolled in just for that. On the right side, you see SAP's Tailored Data Center Integration Model, TDI. This is an SAP acronym, And what it simply means is the ability to deploy HANA as part of a shared IT infrastructure model. As HANA has continued to mature, SAP has opened it up so that customers can more easily adopt it without having the rigidity of a dedicated IT just to a use case. So what you see under the tailored data center integration, all of our components like the Dell servers and the Dell EMC storage have all been validated to work with HANA. The servers that were validated in the appliance model can be deployed as part of a TDI model, shared IT model. And that's where our reference architectures come in. And then you have our block systems. When you want to have converged infrastructure as your preferred model, you can bring in your converged infrastructure, or such as a VX block, and have it run to fully support SAP HANA and non-HANA workloads. So these are the two key models that you usually get from SAP. And the key takeaway from this slide is we offer solutions or platforms across that entire paradigm. Now, once you understand that we offer the appliances and the TDI, or we support SAP's appliance and TDI model, the next way you start looking at your consumption of SAP is really, do I want to have it in a single node scale up mode, or do I want to have it in a multi-node scale out model? So in what way do I want to plan to consume the infrastructure? And that's usually tied to what I'll call SAP use cases. Business One, Business Warehouse on HANA, data marts. These are SAP-defined target workloads for either scale up or scale out. So down the left-hand side, you see based on SAP's appliance models or the TDI models, which we just talked about in the first slide, we align which ones would align to the specific SAP workloads. What we hope is that this provides you just a simple view of understanding how we support SAP applications on HANA based on SAP's hardware directory, which this is aligned to. But now what we're going to be doing is looking at how we peel this onion to really get into some of the specific things you might want to consider on which one is appropriate for you, and this is where we'll be introducing Chris Ward. But this simple view will at least allow you to see the breadth of our coverage and understand it in terms of what we do have to offer. So now I would like to turn this over to Chris Ward, who is really going to get into more specifics on the HANA delivery models that we have for infrastructure.
Thank you, Jim. So we're going to go into a few slides discussing both the appliance model and the TDI model, and we will be able to dig into various levels of detail as we dig into the different aspects. SAP HANA appliances actually come in two flavors. They come in a scale-up architecture as well as a scale-out architecture. The basic difference between the two is a single node or scale-up architecture has a single server with traditionally onboard storage, whereas a scale-out architecture usually has some shared storage system. We, within the larger Dell EMC, offer both types of appliances, so it really depends on what your particular use case is as to which one you would leverage. A scale-up appliance has the capabilities of going in a single node platform, 2 terabytes of analytical or 4 terabytes of transactional. And you can also do optionally vSphere for virtualizing your SAP HANA workload. That said, with a multi-node or scale-out appliance, it's primarily focused on a analytical workload, so you'll be able to do your large BW, your large data mart implementation, and you can do so in 1, 1.5, and 2 terabyte increments. So it depends on what processor of server, what processors included in the server will dictate whether or not you can go 1, 1.5, or 2 terabyte increments, but you will do so consistently as you grow it out. And that is actually fairly standard for all BW implementations, whether it is an appliance implementation or a TDI implementation. Just note that we can do either. So you have that infinite scalability within either paradigm. And then the third type of SAP HANA appliance are edge appliances. These are appliances meant to be more departmental and focused, pushed out to remote offices to do on-site analytical processing, and then move that data then through SAP Luminar back into a larger enterprise implementation of SAP HANA. These are meant to be, again, departmental and very focused on that type of remote workload. Moving on now to the tailored data center integration model. This is actually where we will probably spend most of our time today discussing various SAP HANA implementations. What makes the SAP HANA TDI model so particularly interesting is it gets out of the standard appliance paradigm, whereas you have single dedicated infrastructure to a single SAP HANA database. It will actually allow you to run mixed workloads on one piece of infrastructure. This actually came about because of customers like yourself pushing back on SAP, saying we don't necessarily want to do dedicated HANA appliances in our large enterprise when we already have storage that can easily do HANA, servers that can easily do HANA, and frankly, networking that can easily do HANA. SAP listened. They came out in 2013 with the tailored data center integration model, and this has been for large enterprises one of the go-to areas for deploying HANA going forth. Within the larger Dell EMC, the majority of our infrastructure, in fact, is primarily focused on this particular delivery model, specifically because of the mixed workload aspect. It'll allow customers like yourself to do an entire SAP NetWeaver stack plus your SAP HANA database, plus maybe even traditional databases that are still out there for some particular application requirements, but you can do so all in one piece of single converged or reference architecture. Within the larger Dell EMC, we have our reference architecture portfolio, which brings together certified Dell EMC compute, the powered servers that have been certified for use with SAP HANA, up to 4 sockets for a number of years, as well as traditional Dell EMC storage platforms. Regardless of which path you choose to go down, whether you want to go down the appliance path, whether you want to go down the reference architecture, build your own path, or even the converged infrastructure, which we will discuss in a moment, Dell EMC has server components, they have storage components, they even have networking components that can fit the bill and help you on your journey. Moving forward into traditional converged infrastructure, which Dell EMC CPSD, the Converged Platform and Solutions Division, or DC as we used to be known, going back to our traditional infrastructure that we've been putting forward, we still have, of course, vBlocks and VxBlock systems that are available for use with SAP HANA. We have specifically been doing this for a number of years now as well, and have many deployments worldwide with both virtual and physical HANA, large, small, everything in between. So implementing your SAP landscape on a traditional block is kind of an interesting venture. When we started implementing SAP on blocks, we did so as your traditional NetWeaver stack with your standard database, your standard row-based database that your Oracles, your SQL servers, your stuff that you've been using for years. MVC, just like everybody else, came up with a scale-out appliance, which we still have to maintain so that we are in compliance with SAP and for their HANA architecture. But ultimately, because of the TDI model, we were able to roll everything together into one piece of infrastructure and, again, making best use of that mixed workload capabilities that TDI brings to offer. And within Dell EMC CPSD, we have a number of certified components that we can put together either with or in our traditional block systems to support SAP HANA. This particular slide has a near snapshot of the capabilities from a hardware perspective that we can include, and this has even been expanded upon in the last quarter alone. If you'll notice some interesting additions, for instance, we have Boolean servers that we can now partner with block systems to do even the largest scale-up Suite on HANA instance, as well as we have capabilities now from VMware that are certified to do vSphere 6.0 and even 6.5 in some production use cases. Roadmap capabilities for block systems, we've actually, like I said, made some progress already this year, which is fantastic. The next thing we're really targeting is vSphere 6.0 and 6.5 scale-out capabilities. That is something that VMware and Dell specifically are working with SAP jointly to try to close out at some point in this quarter, hopefully. Going into the second half of 2017, then the capabilities that we are targeting is, of course, the Skylake processor. The Skylake microarchitecture is going to truly change how we approach SAP and SAP HANA, and block systems are no different. Once those particular components are available and can be certified by the vendors, by Dell EMC, by Cisco for block systems specifically, once we are able to partner all that together, get it certified and roll into the blocks, you'll see some true innovation happening on the capabilities, the scalable capabilities of block systems for SAP HANA. Going forward into VxRack systems, so the conversation today is primarily around what we can do with SAP HANA in your data center. And as we know, we have traditional infrastructure capabilities with appliances, with reference architecture, with converged infrastructure, but converged infrastructure wouldn't be complete without at least touch on the hyperconverged infrastructure space. Now, right now, our capabilities within the VxRack systems for HANA are rather limited. We are validated to do entry-level HANA instances, which at this time we are primarily focusing on non-production, very small use cases. However, this is going to change and evolve as we get into the latter half of this year into 2018 next year. Mainly, Platform 3 applications have been the target for VxRack. SAP HANA is more of a Platform 2, of course, application, but as the product VxRack system in this particular case continues to mature, being able to bring those more traditional Platform 3 or Platform 2 rather applications into the hyperconverged space is a demand not only internally, but it's also a demand by you, the customer. So we are moving forward as quick as we can to try to introduce that. We are at this point targeting, of course, the Skylake processors, bringing those into the rack systems first. The physical hardware right now, we're targeting bringing that together, like I said, that latter half of this year. And SAP certification is right now targeted towards the end of this year, early next year. So by the time the processors themselves are available, widely available across the servers are certified, and we're bringing those servers officially into the rack systems, having the certification will be just the next step in that evolution. And once that's available, quite literally the sky's the limit. So now, since we've talked about the infrastructure needs, let's talk about protecting it. So whenever you're dealing with traditional infrastructure or even hyperconverged infrastructure, especially for HANA, we're still talking about data that's in memory, and this gets persisted down to disk, which is, of course, very important. But you still have to make sure all that data is backed up at some point. And the primary drivers for this is, of course, meeting your RTO, your RPOs, meeting your control and automation requirements, and trying to reduce and minimize the size of those backup windows, trying to make it as dynamic and as continuous as possible without, of course, disrupting how the business actually performs on a daily basis. So along those lines, we have different methodologies of data protection that we employ within Dell EMC to ensure that your data is always backed up. Again, HANA is an in-memory database. All that data in memory has to get written to disk at some point, otherwise it becomes volatile. So that initial writing to disk, of course, has to be attached to a certified storage system, which we have at the very bottom of the grid, you see. And then as we start moving away from the initial servers, we have high availability and even disaster tolerance. High availability is just simply making sure that if you do have an issue with the computer, you have something to fail over to. Disaster tolerance is primarily pushing data between your primary data center and a secondary data center, so that if you do have an issue, a catastrophic issue in one place, you can fail over to the second. We have certified solutions that will certainly move that data for you, whether you're talking about SAP HANA system replications actually built into the product, or you're talking about some sort of storage-based replication mechanism. There's use cases for both. There's reasons to use both. It really just depends what your particular situation. When you go beyond that, though, you still need traditional backups. You still need to look at how am I going to protect this data in case something truly bad happens and I need to restore from backup. So within that line, we use the Dell EMC data domain product line to ensure that we're taking local backups and we're pushing that to a tertiary site or a bunker site, depending on how you want to word it. But by using this methodology, we are able to ensure that you have backups, that you have copies of the data. In case something bad happens, you'll never actually lose data within your corporation. So now we're going to talk about extending SAP HANA into the big data space. So big data is obviously a term that gets passed around a lot, and it really just talks about how you want to push data off into a large data lake or some sort of similar paradigm. But within the SAP space, the SAP HANA space specifically, we talk about data temperature and how we can move some of that data out of what we call active memory, out of the memory of the actual host itself, back into some sort of traditional row-based database, or even push it off into some sort of data lake paradigm. This overall process is called SAP HANA data temperature. And we have customers actually exploring this path right now. And this is where you're utilizing something like HANA IQ, for instance, that can do nearline storage, or can actually make that first step, if you will, going from hot data to warm data. And then eventually you can even make that down into a Hadoop cluster, and we call that cold or frozen data, depending on your implementation. What's really nice about this overall solution, however, is because of the HANA TDI model, because of the architecture that Dell EMC brings forth with our converged infrastructure, you can actually do all of this from one single piece of hardware. You can actually do one all-encompassing complete solution. So your block system, if you already have a block system, you can easily expand it to do this type of work. If you don't have a block system and you're looking to do HANA on it, you can, from the get-go, if you will, you can look at what kind of complete solution can I put forward to not only have my hot data, but also have my warm data, and also potentially even go down into my cold or even frozen. We have customers right now who are saying from day one, I want hot data and I want warm data capabilities. So that gives us this level of flexibility and gives us also the capabilities of rolling this all together into one complete solution. And then when you get past this, then you get into more of your IoT use cases. And this is increasingly becoming a hot topic for a lot of customers like yourselves. IoT is the buzzword, if you will, for 2017. And because of this, customers want to know, what can I do from the IoT space and how can I integrate that into SAP HANA? So whether you're looking at some sort of Splunk path, whether you're looking at whatever type of Hadoop capability, doesn't really matter. However you want to do that, not only could you put the IoT capabilities into or associated with a traditional block system, but then you can also tie that back into SAP HANA specifically. SAP is actually putting a lot of effort and a lot of focus on that. They started last year, and they will continue this year, and will most likely carry forward for a number of years. So if you are going to attend SAP Sapphire in May, you'll see a lot of conversations around IoT plus SAP HANA integration. And we, within Dell EMC, had the capabilities of putting all that together with a single block solution.
So as we look to wrap up, we want to thank you very much, the VUG community, for having us today to talk about SAP HANA. As we look to close up, a couple of things. Number one, we did talk a little bit about running in the cloud, which is an important topic for SAP, and we can get further details on that at a later time. We talked a lot about adopting HANA. That's foremost one of the more important topics for SAP customers today, especially many of you who may be running SAP. So we talked about the appliances and the TDI model, protecting it, as well as we can also look at some of the deployment and migration strategies. And then we talked a little bit about the big data. But as you look forward to the next couple of weeks with us, we'd just like to remind you that both Chris and I are going to be at Dell EMC World, if you're there, as well as we're going to be at SAP Sapphire. VUG is going to be holding one of their user group meetings at SAP Sapphire the night before, and we'll be there. And we would very much welcome the opportunity to speak to you in much more detail on any of these topics that you might have. Again, we really appreciate your time. Users are very important. We would welcome your inputs. But we hope that we at least gave you a little bit of a foundation of how we're looking at SAP HANA and how, when you bring Dell and EMC together, how you can see how our strategy is playing out to support our customers in this market. Thanks again, and we look forward to talking to you.
So we're now actually opened up for Q&A. If anybody does have any questions, we have Chris and Jim here that are happy to help in answering those questions. And, of course, they look forward to seeing you at both of our upcoming events.
Erica, this is David. There's a question in the Q&A window. Are you seeing it? It's for, I think, Jim or Chris. You can answer this. VxRack, supported for prod or non-prod is the question. Can you guys address that, please?
Sure. This is Chris. That's a good question. So VxRack currently has an entry-level validation for instances up to 512 gig, and that's across E5, V3, 5v4 processors. We personally don't like to position that for production use. We like to focus that more on non-production use for today. We would rather see HANA itself actually run on E7 processors, and as we stated, that is something that we're targeting towards the end of 2017, early 2018 to get those E7 processors into VxRack, which is step one, and then step two is, of course, getting that certified through SAP for use with HANA in a production environment. So, yeah, we're really focusing more on non-production for rack today, but production absolutely tomorrow, if you will, towards the end of the year, early 2018.
Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Erica, this is David. I'm not seeing any further questions in the Q&A. Folks, if you've got another Q&A or question, please feel free to enter that now. Otherwise, copy down Jim or Chris's emails on the screen, and certainly feel free to ping them with questions. They're a great resource for you. And let's see here. Will this slideware be posted anywhere? Erica, I think that question can go to you. And if you're on mute, I can take it for you. So, Erica, I think I hear you. Alrighty. This whole webinar will be available on the VUG website as part of the monthly webinar series. VUG website is vcusergroup.com. You can join for free, and once you've joined, you will find in the Member Resource Center these webinars. So this will be there. You'll be able to listen to it, replay it, and it will be available. In addition, the first VUG monthly webinar was on database licensing for Converged and Hyperconverged. If you missed that last month, please check that out as well. So I don't think the slideware will be available for replay, but the entire webinar will be available.
That is correct. I'm hoping I'm off mute now, or it's at least working, because I was trying to get off mute. Perfect. So yes, we will have it. The slides will be included in that recording. If that is something that you really want, please email us and we'll see what we can do. But everything should be there for your recording, and it will be posted by tomorrow afternoon. So
Fantastic.
if we have any more questions.
Well, I'm not seeing anything, Erica. Folks, this is Dave Dusiga. I am the liaison for the VUG and Dell EMC. And again, I extend my thanks to Jim and Chris for providing some great information to VUG members. The purpose of this series is to provide you guys more information, exclusive access and information. So if you have ideas for topics that you would like to see, this is your VUG. Submit those through the VUG website, and we will work to secure those topics for future webinars. On behalf of Mike Somerville, VUG President, if you enjoyed today's webinar, please tell your friends. And if you had issues with today's webinar or you didn't like it, please tell Mike Somerville. Mike's M-I-K-E-S at vceusergroup.com. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Erica, for final cleanup and sign off.
Great. Thank you so much, David. And thank you both, Jim and Chris, for taking the time out of your day to speak with us and share these great things about SAP HANA. As Jim mentioned, we do have some great events coming up in May at Dell EMC World in Las Vegas and at Sapphire in Orlando. If you're going to one of those or both of those, we would love to see you there. So please be sure to check out our website and see our upcoming events, and we look forward to meeting you at one of those events. At the end of this, I just wanted to remind you that as soon as this does end, you will be redirected to a short online evaluation. This also will help with what David was saying to let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, just great comments coming in, just because, like he said, you are our members, and we really appreciate your thoughts and where you want to see this going. And if you enjoyed this webinar, please stay tuned for our May webinar on May 24th. That'll be covering super converged infrastructure. And again, all of us from VUG just want to say thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. So with that, I will say goodbye.